My wife divorced me via email while I was on a business trip. She withdrew all the money from our joint account and brought her new boyfriend home. I calmly accepted it. And when she realized what I had done, it was too late. The email arrived in Kandahar, a digital guillotine delivered straight to my inbox. 13 years of marriage, reduced to a PDF attachment. I was Staff Sergeant Henry Briggs, 42 years old, serving with the 82nd Airborne. 4 months into this deployment, Liam had decided she was done waiting. The subject line, "Let's be adults about this," was a jarring prelude to the concise message within. She'd filed the paperwork, emptied our joint account, and moved her new boyfriend, Mason, into our Spokane home. I read it twice, the words sharp but oddly distant. My fingers, accustomed to the rough grip of a rifle, closed my laptop with a precise click. I moved to the communal showers, the cold water stinging my skin, a stark contrast to the heat that should have been rising inside me. Dressed for my shift, I joined the other soldiers, my face a mask of practiced indifference. Later that night, back in the dim privacy of my bunk, I opened the email again. My reply was a single word, sent into the vast emptiness of the digital void. Understood. No argument, no plea, no threat. Just that. Wilson, my bunkmate, sensed the shift in the air. He glanced up from his book, a slight furrow in his brow. "You good, man?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," I replied, the word flat. "Just some stuff back home." He nodded, and that was it. In the military, some things are left unsaid. We learn to read between the lines, to respect the unspoken boundaries. Truth be told, the shock wasn't total. 6 months before I deployed, the atmosphere in our home had subtly changed. Small things, at first. Liam stopped asking about my day. Her work at the dental office, where she answered phones, suddenly required late nights. She started going to the gym 3 times a week, but never seemed to break a sweat. New clothes appeared in her closet, then new friends I never met, and finally, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her. That wasn't my way. I wasn't the type to snoop through messages or follow someone. But I wasn't blind either. My gut, a companion through countless combat zones, whispered a warning. So, I made my own quiet moves. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I gathered essential documents. My birth certificate, our marriage license, the house deed, only my name on it, thanks to the VA loan, my military benefits paperwork, and secured them in a storage unit across town. My grandfather's watch, my mom's old silver, things that held weight beyond monetary value, joined them. I also opened a separate bank account, diverting a small portion of my pay there. Not enough for her to notice, but enough to ensure I wouldn't be starting from zero if my suspicions proved true. The night before deployment, at the airport, she'd hugged me. "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry, devoid of the usual tears, as if she were bidding farewell to a colleague, not her husband heading to war. I should have known then, the cold finality of it. But a sliver of hope, stubborn and foolish, still clung to me. It shouldn't have. What she didn't know, couldn't have known, was how thoroughly I'd prepared for this moment. I never started fights, but I always finished them. I met Liam at a friend's barbecue in 2010. I was home between tours, staying with Jason, my buddy in Spokane. She was finishing nursing school, though she ended up working admin at a dental practice. "Less stress," she'd said. We were married 8 months later. Liam often said she was proud of my service, though I suspected she never quite understood it. Her father was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist, no military lineage in her family. She'd ask when I was going to get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the Army wasn't just a job. It was my career, my identity. We bought our house in 2014. Nothing grand, but it was ours, 3 bedrooms, a small yard, a quiet neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage due to the VA loan, but I added her to the deed. That's what married people do, isn't it? Share things. My dad died a year after we married, a heart attack while shoveling snow. My mom followed 3 years later, lung cancer, despite never smoking. They left me some money, not a fortune, but enough to pay off our student loans and still have a cushion. I deployed 4 times during our marriage, Iraq twice, Afghanistan twice. Each return home brought with it a subtle shift in Liam, a growing distance, a restlessness, as if she were playing a role she'd outgrown. I didn't sign up to be a military wife. she told me once when I mentioned re-upping for another 4 years. I'm tired of being alone all the time. I understood that, truly. But the army was the only place I ever felt truly belonged. I was good at my job. People depended on me. In 2019, the quiet changes intensified. Small things. Her irritation when I called during girls' nights. Her casual remarks about how her friend Melissa had divorced her husband and was living her best life now. Comments about our lack of shared interests. I suggested counseling. She dismissed it, just a phase. Then came the late nights, the weekends away with unseen friends, the new clothes, the gym membership she rarely used. I should have confronted her. But that's not how I operate. My dad taught me to think before I speak, to be sure before I act. So I watched, and I prepared quietly. My gut told me something was coming. And in this life, you learn to trust your gut. 2 weeks after the divorce email, I was in the mess hall when my phone buzzed. A notification from our bank app. Another withdrawal, $8,500, almost everything left. My fork clattered quietly against my plate. I opened the app. Our joint account balance read $2.37. Our savings, $47,000 built over years, was gone, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Murphy, one of the guys, glanced over. Bad news. I locked my phone, my expression flat. Nah, just some account stuff. That night, I called our bank from the base phone center. Liam had been moving money for weeks, small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfers began the day after I deployed. I hung up and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching the easy camaraderie of the other soldiers, hearing their laughter, their calls to kids, wives, parents. Normal life, happening all around me, while mine burned down. That's when Wilson found me. Heard from Alvarez you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's up? I don't usually share personal stuff. But Wilson had pulled me out of a bad situation in Kandahar once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Sent divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Wilson didn't offer platitudes. He simply asked, what's your plan? Not sure yet, I admitted. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. Sleep eluded me that night. I pulled out my laptop, logging into our home security system, something Liam likely forgot I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange truck in our driveway. A man I'd never seen before walked our dog, used my coffee mug, wore my Seahawk sweatshirt. And Liam, laughing in the kitchen I'd renovated during my last leave. Something shifted inside me then. Not anger, not exactly. Something colder, clearer. A quiet certainty. I closed the laptop, pulled out my phone. My mind, trained for contingencies, began to strategize. I made a list. Called Jack, my army buddy who became a lawyer. Check the VA loan terms. Contact Master Sergeant about emergency leave. Review home refinance documents. Liam had mentioned something casually last year. Check the security on my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was planning a complex mission. This wasn't about emotion now. This was about strategy. At 0500, before my shift, I sent an email to Jack. Need legal help, discreet and urgent. His reply came an hour later. Call me, secure line only. When I hung up from that call, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and watch, and let her own actions become the trap. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Liam I was coming home. No calls, no texts. I checked into a motel in downtown Spokane under a different name and contacted Jack. We met at a diner 10 miles outside of town. You look like hell, he said, sliding into the booth. Feel like it too, I replied, the words a weary acknowledgement of the past months. Jack handed me a folder. It contained everything we discussed, the house deed, loan documents, bank statements. And this, he added, pulling out a separate paper, found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. It was a refinance application with my signature on it. Except it wasn't my signature. Not quite. Someone had tried to copy it, but missed the subtle details. The middle initial was wrong, and the stroke pattern wasn't mine. Liam did this. I asked, though the answer was already a cold certainty in my gut. Jack nodded. 3 months ago. Used the equity to pull out $30,000. Your signature is required for that. since the VA loan is in your name only. Forge my signature, take out a loan against our house, then clear out our accounts and divorce me. I murmured, the sequence of events forming a chilling picture. Busy woman. It gets better, Jack said, his voice flat. She listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. He's got a record, 2 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2019. I took a slow, deep breath, steadying myself. What are my options? Several, Jack said. But first, you need to decide what you want. I considered this. My mind, usually quick to identify a clear objective, paused. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about consequences. I want what's legally mine, I stated, and I want her to understand consequences. Jack gave a small, grim smile. Then here's what we do. The next day, I drove past our house. Her boyfriend's truck was gone, but Liam's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched for a while, the familiar walls holding unfamiliar shadows. A flicker of an old thought. Knock, confront. But that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank. I met with the loan officer who had processed the refinance, showed him my military ID, the real signature on my driver's license, then the forged documents. His face went pale. I'll need to report this immediately, he said. I understand. I replied, my voice calm. I've already filed a police report. That night, I received a text from Liam. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Mason said someone was asking questions. I didn't respond. The silence was its own message. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office, filed paperwork contesting the refinance due to fraud, and registered a formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. 2 days later, Liam called. I let it go to voicemail. Henry, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss it like adults. Like adults. The same words from her email. I still didn't respond. The desire to react, to explain, was there, a faint echo of my past self. But I simply let it pass. Jack called that afternoon. They froze the refinance money, he said, a note of satisfaction in his voice. And there's more. Your wife's boyfriend has been driving your truck, right? The one in your name. Yeah. He got pulled over this morning driving on a suspended license from those DUIs. They impounded the vehicle. Good, I said, a quiet sense of grim justice settling over me. He also had some interesting things in the truck. Prescription pads from the dental office where Liam works. They weren't blank. I closed my eyes. This was getting bigger than I'd expected. She's been stealing prescription pads? Looks that way. The police are investigating. I hung up and sat on the edge of the motel bed. A momentary impulse to call Liam, to warn her, an old habit, a residual concern, but then the image of the security camera footage flashed in my mind. My house, my dog, my life given away like it meant nothing. No, this was the path now. I couldn't turn back, and honestly, I didn't want to. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning. His name was Thompson, a short guy with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his tie. This happens more often than you'd think, he said, spreading documents across his desk. Spouse deploys, other spouse sees an opportunity. What happens now? I asked, my voice steady. We've frozen the funds from the fraudulent refinance, but there's a problem. Some of the money's already gone. How much? About half. $14,600. I leaned forward. Where did it go? Thompson hesitated. I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house, my name forged, my money stolen. My tone was firm, without a hint of aggression. He nodded slowly, then turned his computer screen toward me. These are the transfers out of the refinance account. I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to someone named Daniel Spencer. Not Mason. Someone else I'd never heard of. Who's Daniel Spencer? I asked. Thompson shrugged. Not my department, but you should ask your lawyer to subpoena these records. I called Jack as soon as I left the bank. Daniel Spencer? He repeated. Let me run a check. An hour later, he called back. Got it. Daniel Spencer is a real estate agent, specializes in quick sales, cash deals. She was planning to sell our house, I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Not just betrayal, but systematic eradication of my life. Looks that way. The deposits were probably earnest money to get him moving on a listing. But here's where it gets interesting. Spencer has done business with Mason Ryan before. Mason Ryan is that your wife's boyfriend? I asked, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Yes. They've closed 3 deals together in the past 2 years. I sat down on a park bench, trying to process this new information. So this wasn't just Liam leaving me for some guy. This was what? A planned operation? Maybe, Jack said carefully. I did some digging into Mason Ryan. He has a pattern. Gets involved with women going through divorce or with deployed spouses. 3 cases I found so far. Each time, the woman's home gets sold well below market value to one of Spencer's clients. Ryan gets a cut, then he moves on. And Liam, she knew about this? Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too, or maybe she's in on it. I rubbed my face, the weight of the realization pressing down on me. This wasn't just about Liam betraying me anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated, and other military families have been victims. A different kind of mission presented itself. What do we do? I asked. I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crime Division, Jack said. This crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're interested. That night, I sat in my motel room with a beer, thinking about everything. Wondering if Liam had been playing me our entire marriage, or if she'd gotten swept up in Mason's scheme. Wondering if it even mattered. My phone buzzed. Liam again. Henry, please call me. The bank is saying something about fraud, and Mason got arrested for driving your truck. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Who is Daniel Spencer?" 3 dots appeared as she started typing, then stopped. Started again. Stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about." $14,600, I wrote. Multiple transfers. House listing. No response for 10 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone and went to bed. The quiet certainty had returned, sharper now. The next morning, Jack called. FBI wants to meet. They've been investigating Ryan and Spencer for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open. For the first time since getting that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. I met with the FBI agents at their field office in Spokane. Agent Patel and Agent Donovan. They were methodical, taking my statement, copying all the documents Jack and I had gathered. Your case helps establish a pattern, Agent Patel explained. Shows intent, organization, makes it a conspiracy rather than isolated incidents. What about Liam? I asked, the words feeling strange on my tongue. My wife, ex-wife. The agents exchanged looks. We're still determining her level of involvement, Donovan said carefully. Did she ever mention financial difficulties, pressure to sell the house? I thought back. She kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need. Our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary. Patel made a note. When did that start? About 6 months ago, around the time she must have met Mason. And the refinance? Donovan asked. Never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed. They asked more questions, took more notes. When we finished, Patel handed me her card. We'll be in touch. In the meantime, don't confront your wife or Ryan. We need to build this case carefully. I nodded. Understood. That evening, I drove to our neighborhood again, parked down the street from our house. Mason's truck was back. He must have gotten it out of impound. Liam's car was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Liam. We need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow. I showed the text to Jack over breakfast the next day. Don't go, he advised. Nothing good can come from talking to her right now. I won't, I said, my decision firm. But I want to know what she's doing today while she thinks I'm meeting her. We drove to our house at 9:30 a.m. parked across the street. At 9:45, Liam came out, got in her car, and drove away, heading toward Riverfront Park. Now what? Jack asked. Now we wait, I said, a quiet certainty in my voice. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up, a real estate agent logo on the door. Daniel Spencer. Mason came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. Should we follow them? Jack asked. I shook my head. No need. I installed security cameras last year, interior and exterior. They upload to cloud storage. Jack smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. You didn't mention that before. Never came up, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the security app and angled the screen so Jack could see. Spencer and Mason were in our living room. Spencer was taking photos. Mason was pointing at features of the house. I turned up the volume. Should list by the end of the week, Spencer was saying. I've got a buyer interested already. Cash offer as usual. How much? Mason asked. 420. We list at 470. They offer 420. Everybody's happy. What about the husband? Liam says he's causing trouble. Spencer waved dismissively. Military guys are all the same. They make noise, but they've got deployments, responsibilities. He'll take a settlement to make it go away. I turned to Jack. You getting this? He was already recording the feed on his phone. Every word. I forwarded the security feed access to Agent Patel with a short message. Happening now. 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street, a silent observer as agents led Spencer and Mason out in handcuffs. My phone rang. Agent Patel. Got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme, she said, plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We're going to need a formal statement from you, of course. Of course, I said. My voice was steady, the tremors inside long since quieted. And Mr. Briggs, she added, your wife just arrived at the scene. She's distressed. I looked down the street. Liam was standing on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as FBI agents carried boxes of documents from our house. Her world, like mine, was being dismantled, but by her own hand. What happens to her? I asked. The question was a detached observation, not an emotional plea. That depends, Patel said, on what she knew and on what you want. I watched Liam for a long moment. 13 years of marriage. Good years at the beginning, before whatever this had become. The pain was still a memory, but the sting had faded. I just want what's right, I said finally. The federal case moved quickly. Mason and Spencer both took plea deals, implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a 3-state operation targeting military families. Liam maintained she knew nothing about the larger scheme. Said Mason had convinced her I was hiding money, planning to leave her with nothing. Said the refinance was his idea. She'd just gone along with it. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement. Full restitution of the stolen funds, forfeiture of any claim to the house or my military pension, a signed confession about the forgery. In exchange, I didn't press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. No fault, clean break, all things considered. On the day the last paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Patel. Mason Ryan was sentenced today. 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Spencer got 12. Thought you'd want to know. Thank you, I said. There's something else, she added. We found evidence they've done this to 11 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families might get their money back because of you. After we hung up, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment, watching the sunset. I thought about those other families, other men who deployed, thinking their homes and marriages were safe, only to come back to emptiness. I hadn't planned on being the one to bring down Mason and Spencer's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed. Text from Liam. I never meant for things to end this way. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. A year hence, I divested myself of the dwelling. I found it unbearable to inhabit the abode any longer. An abundance of recollections, an overwhelming sense of perfidy ingrained within its confines. The proceeds were employed to procure a modest lodge situated beyond Missoula, Montana, boasting a pair of sleeping chambers, 10 parcels of acreage, a flowing brook at its rear, and an absence of nearby inhabitants for a considerable distance. I elected for an early cessation of my military tenure. 2 decades had been adequate. I had contributed sufficiently. I acquired a canine companion, a German Shepherd designated scout, and embarked on carpentry endeavors for community members. The work was unassuming, yet it engaged my hands and defrayed my outgoings. My armed forces stipend accounted for the residual. At times, I contemplated Liam, speculating on her ultimate whereabouts. Jack learned she had relocated to her birthplace in Oregon, gainfully employed at an alternative dental practice, presumptively initiating a fresh start. My animosity towards her had dissipated. Candidly, I felt scant emotion concerning her. She had made her determinations, and I likewise had mine. During one particular evening, I received a missive from a female individual residing in Fort Worth. Her consort was a member of the Naval Service, stationed abroad when Mason and Spencer endeavored to perpetrate their deception upon her. The Federal Bureau of Investigation had supplied her with my appellation as a component of the legal proceedings. "You are unfamiliar with me," she inscribed, "yet you preserved our abode. My appreciation goes to you for contending when retreating would have been less challenging." I reviewed it on 2 separate occasions, then secured it to my refrigeration unit. On particular days, when the quietude grew too oppressive or the recollections too vivid, I would contemplate that dispatch and recollect that a beneficial consequence had arisen from the entire affair. The most recent intelligence indicated Mason remained confined. Spencer identically. The apparatus of justice operated effectively, for a change. Concerning myself, I was progressing onward, one serene day at a stretch, fabricating something nascent, something impervious to illicit appropriation, falsification, or disloyalty, something solely belonging to me. Lesson. As I look back on everything that happened, there's one lesson that stands out above all. Prepare, plan, and stay calm, no matter how devastating the situation seems. Life threw a brutal curveball at me, but I had already taken the necessary steps to protect myself before it hit. When betrayal and deceit came knocking, I didn't let my emotions dictate my actions. Instead, I stayed focused, calculated, and methodical. Sometimes the best thing you can do when faced with betrayal is not to react impulsively, but to let your actions speak louder than your emotions. You can't control what others do, but you can control how you handle it. It's also important to remember, justice takes time, but it will come when you stand firm. I didn't rush to settle scores. I let the truth unfold, and in the end, it was justice, not anger, that prevailed. What do you think about Henry's approach? Was his decision to stay calm and let the truth come to light the right one? Or do you think he should have confronted Liam sooner? Do you believe he did the right thing by letting the system handle the consequences? Let me know your thoughts after reading the story. Would you have handled things differently? I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments below.